Hello, Daniel Esplin joining you today with two special guests, Cathy Wood and Victoria Sparks, or as they are also known, Vidarneisti. Thank you so much for joining me. And did I get it right?
Great, perfect.
Now, I've got to say, it's really awesome that there's actually an Icelandic term for your guys' name that fits so perfectly with who you are and what you do.
We were very excited when we came up with it. we found that this word actually exists with our names. So we were pretty happy. And then it also represents really the ideas that we love, which is kind of sparking a new idea, creating something new, that kind of that matchstick idea of a new idea. Oh, yeah, I just said idea like 9 times.
And we love the play on words and thought it was oh so funny and clever.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's perfect. It's meant to be. You're performing Sunday at Trinity Lutheran Church for the Estevan Arts or concert series put on by the Estevan Arts Council. Now, I think with most people, they're familiar with the clarinet. Maybe they played it in band, but the marimba, on the other hand, I think maybe people would confuse it with glockenspiel, possibly a vibraphone. Cathy, can you explain what makes the marimba different than other instruments that are similar?
Well, maybe Tori, do you want to grab this
Yeah,
one?
I'll dive in. So you see right behind me there is my big marimba that I'll be bringing there on Sunday. And this is often people say, "Oh, is that the big xylophone?" And it's kind of a similar family of instruments. So there are all different instruments that, like you mentioned, the glockenspiel and the vibraphone. Those ones are interesting because they're made out of metal, and then xylophone and marimba are connected because they're made out of wood. The bars are made out of wood. So you get all the pitches that you would see on a normal keyboard with the white notes and the black notes, except they're all the same color because they're all made out of a similar material. So this is a 5-octave marimba, goes from middle C down 2 octaves and up 3 octaves. And so we got a nice wide range of notes to play all the way across there. So I get to disassemble this and put it in the car, and we'll be driving it to Saskatchewan next week.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. And I saw a video of you performing. I saw that you're using 4 mallets. Is that always the case, or how do you do that? Do you ever get 5 mallets in there?
You can go up to 6. You can do 3 and 3. It is really hard.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to control them. There is a few players in the world who really manipulate 6 mallets very well, but they are special, unique people. 4 is pretty standard for kind of concert repertoire. So lots of 2 mallet playing where we only you just do two hands, 2 sticks, and you kind of play a single line melody. And so when we start young students, we start that way. But then when we get into kind of more chamber playing and solo playing, 4 is the standard.
That's awesome. And then with it being a percussive instrument, you could play chords and stuff on there. How do you bring the clarinet in, and kind of what roles are the two of you each playing?
So I think it depends on the music, but there is some music where Tori will cover more of the harmony and the chords, and I've got the melody. But then definitely, we switch roles, and I'll play the harmony, and out just arpeggiating things, and yeah.
We've done a lot of work to arrange pieces to kind of make them work that way so that we kind of switch roles back and forth or cover different parts of the arrangement. And we also, when we first started playing together, we kind of started out saying, well, we like each other and we want to be friends. Let's start a project and start playing together. And then when we heard the instruments together, we really kind of fell in love with the combination of the sound, the kind of the warm reed sound of the clarinet and the warm round sound of the marimba. They blend really well. And so we once we kind of heard it together, we thought we're really onto something here. It's a really beautiful combination.
We're
So
not
is
buying
it?
all.
Yeah, no bias. We think it's
Of
great.
course not. Yeah. So then, is it an uncommon pairing?
Yeah, it's fairly uncommon. There are a few groups around the world, but there's not a lot of music written for it. So we've been commissioning and getting composers to write things specifically for us. And then, like Tori mentioned, arranging things that are already out there to work for clarinet and marimba. Yeah, and I really like your explanation, Tori, about how the piano stuff can work with the. Do you want to?
Oh, like how pianos work. Yeah. So if you know how to play a piano and you can kind of sit at a piano and see that, if you kind of hold up your pinky and your pointer and imagine how you would kind of try to play the piano with those 4 fingers, that's kind of
Yeah.
how you would figure out how to play the marimba. It's just bigger.
Yeah. So I imagine it's a little difficult to play like dissonant notes and stuff like that then, with
Oh
how
no, you
close they
you
would
can you
be.
can tighten them right up. Yeah, you can just do it. I do that
That's
all the time.
awesome.
And then
So
we
you
really love
mentioned
to
that you're
explore.
getting,
Oh, sorry.
well, I
I
was going to say, you mentioned that you're getting music commissioned for you.
Yeah.
When you talk to composers, are you saying we want it to sound Nordic? And if so, what does that actually mean?
We have commissioned some composers who share the same heritage as us. We kind of met in the way that Icelandic Manitobans, anyway, I do is which is to discover that you have a shared heritage and then immediately go looking for common relatives, figuring out that you must be cousins. And
Right.
so when we kind of had that identity in common, we then also looked for some composers who maybe shared that or different versions of that identity. Cathy and I, my family, we came from Iceland to Canada at different points in kind of the journey of Icelandic Canadians, and so we've commissioned composers who also have different family stories but share that heritage and just wanted to explore that part of our identity.
Hmm. And then when you actually get the music, is there a lot of interpretation? Like, do you have some back and forth with the composers and they heard it a certain way when they were writing it down, and then the way you played it is maybe different?
Yeah, definitely. And that's, I think, one of our favorite parts working with live composers is you can have this dialogue, this back and forth, and you can make suggestions. And sometimes they make changes and they can make suggestions, and you might change the way you play it. So I think it's really exciting to get to work with the living composer.
Yeah, that's one of the favorite sounds that we ever discovered was we had the first composer we worked with asked about using a bow, like a bass bow, which is something that percussionists do a lot on metal instruments. And I'd
Yeah.
done it here and there on the marimba, and I said, well, yeah, I can give it a try. And I sent her some videos of me bowing some of the bars, and she really liked the sound. And then when we heard the piece, she put the clarinet and the marimba in the same register with the bowed sound and the reed sound, and we just went, oh, that's
So,
amazing. It was
and
such
now
an
we tell
exciting
all
sound.
composers, it sounds
Yeah,
great, use it.
yeah. So we keep telling the
How did they
composers.
say your how did they say your form was with the bow?
Oh man, it's terrible because I never want the string players to watch what I do with bows because we're having to reach far distances. So sometimes you've got to hold it this way and sometimes you got to just grab it and yank on it and it's too far away. So and then we're tightening them up like crazy to get them to vibrate. So I always feel embarrassed when string players see what we do to bows.
And and then sorry, is that directly on one of the keys then that you're playing it?
Yeah, you take the bow right up against the bar and then they cause the vibration and the bar is fairly thin so it will vibrate. And so it's a really beautiful sound.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then how are you when you're with an orchestra, it becomes pretty amplified because of how many people are there. When it's just the two of you, is it more of like an intimate sound, and are you having to amplify things to play in theaters and stuff?
We don't use any amplification. We tend to fill a room with sound. The both the marimba and the clarinet have really, I think, uniquely we didn't know this or didn't plan this when we came together, but have a really wide dynamic range. Both instruments can play incredibly soft, but also can play with quite a lot of sound. And so we definitely like to explore the full ranges of the instruments, but we typically play acoustic.
That's awesome. And then for Sunday, what can people expect from the music you're playing? Is it just the stuff you've had commissioned, or is there some traditional Nordic music as well?
We have a mix. We have some things we've commissioned by composers in the prairies who have some Nordic background. We've got some things that might be more familiar to people, like piazzolla, some tangos. Help me out, Tori. What else?
We also have taken like some wintry themes, so it's not necessarily all every single piece is an Icelandic composer, but sometimes we've got a set of winter songs that kind of any prairie person will recognize some of the themes of winter that kind of come out there. And then we're often playing in kind of smaller auditoriums or churches where there's a lot of resonance. So we often try to kind of play to that. So there's some pieces from marimba that really tend to kind of sing out in an acoustic like that. So we've got some chorales and a mix of it's a pretty eclectic mix of styles, and we've got
Some
some fairly
jazz too.
contemporary things.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little jazz, a little bit of
Yeah.
one Broadway tune.
Really, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be nice that you're playing some wintry music, but thankfully you won't have to go through any winter weather while you're visiting. We've had a pretty nice snap of weather here. Hopefully you guys have as well in Manitoba.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
beautiful. It's the days where you can get out
Perfect.
and enjoy the winter.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Vidarneisti performing this Sunday at the Trinity Lutheran Church at 2:30. Tickets are available in advance for $35 or $40 at the door. Cathy, Victoria, I just want to thank you so much for joining me here today.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
We're looking forward to being there.
Yep.